When my father passed away, he left me a $50 million estate. The moment my brother heard, he said, "We're blood, so it's mine too." I thought his greed was the worst I would face, until 3 days later, the bank called me in to open my father's safe deposit box. What my brother saw inside made him collapse. Before I tell you what happened when the bank called me in, make sure to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. I'd love to hear your thoughts. My name is Evelyn Hartman. I am 68 years old, a retired school teacher, and a widow. I never expected wealth in my life. For years, I lived modestly, raising my son Daniel after my husband passed away. My days were simple: cooking, gardening, helping neighbors, and enjoying the small comforts of life. But my father, Richard Hartman, was a different story. He was a man who built an empire in real estate, someone who believed in hard work, loyalty, and honesty. His fortune grew beyond anything I could ever imagine. But to me, he was simply my father. In his last years, when his health declined, I sat by his side, cared for him, and listened to his stories. I never thought about what he would leave behind. My brother Victor was the opposite of me. He had always been drawn to money, success, and power. He enjoyed the charm of expensive suits and polished words, but when it came to family, he often disappeared. While I cared for our father, Victor was busy chasing investments and bragging about his lifestyle. When the will was read, everything changed. Father left his entire estate, worth $50 million, to me. He wrote a short note that said, "Because she was there when I needed her most." The words brought me to tears, but they also lit a fire in Victor. His face hardened, and before the lawyer had even finished reading, he turned to me and said, "We're blood, Evelyn, so it's mine too." I knew then that grief was not the only battle I would face. The real storm was only beginning. When the lawyer's office fell silent after the will was read, I thought maybe Victor would take a deep breath and accept Father's decision. Instead, he slammed his fist on the table so hard the water glasses rattled. His face turned red, and his voice cut through the air like a blade. "This isn't fair, Evelyn. You can't just sit there and act like you deserve all of this. We're blood, so it's mine too." I froze, my hands tightening in my lap. "Victor," I said softly, "this was Father's choice. I didn't ask for it. I didn't even know he planned this. He wrote it with his own hand." You heard him say why. Victor's eyes burned with anger. "Because you sat at his bedside? Because you played the role of the good daughter? Don't fool yourself. Father loved me too, and he would never cut me out like this unless you manipulated him." The accusation stung worse than a slap. Manipulated him? You weren't here, Victor. When he was sick, when he needed help to walk, when he cried at night, I was the one holding his hand. Where were you? He leaned forward, his voice dripping with bitterness. "I was working, Evelyn. I was making deals, building things. Not everyone has the luxury of sitting around playing nurse." I felt my chest tighten, but before I could answer, Daniel spoke up from beside me. "That's enough, Uncle Victor. Don't talk to her like that." His voice was steady, but I could see his hands clenching into fists on his knees. Victor turned his glare on my son. "Stay out of this, Daniel. You're just waiting for your share too, aren't you? Don't think I don't see it." Daniel leaned forward, his eyes locked on his uncle. "The difference is, I don't need her money. I just want my mom to have peace after everything she's been through. You should want that too." The lawyer cleared his throat, trying to restore order. "Mr. Hartman, the will is legally binding. Unless you plan to contest it formally in court, there is nothing else to discuss here today." But Victor wasn't finished. He pointed at me, his finger shaking with fury. "Don't think this is over. I will challenge this. You're not going to hoard everything while I get nothing. Father built this for both of us." I sat there trembling, torn between sorrow and anger. He built it, Victor. Not you, not me. Him. And he left it in my hands. Because he trusted me. You may hate me for it, but it's the truth. Victor stormed out, slamming the office door behind him. The sound echoed in the quiet room, and I felt my whole body sag with exhaustion. Daniel reached for my hand, his voice gentle. Don't let him break you, Mom. You did nothing wrong. I nodded, though my heart was heavy. That night, I barely slept, haunted by Victor's words. He had always been competitive, but this was something darker. It wasn't about money alone. It was about power, pride, and resentment that had been building for years. 2 days later, my fears were confirmed. Victor showed up at my house uninvited. He barged into the living room without knocking, his face hard. We need to talk, he said sharply. I stood my ground, my arms folded. If you came here to threaten me again, you can leave. He laughed bitterly. Threaten you? No. I came to give you a chance. Split it with me, Evelyn. Half. You get security, I get what I'm owed, and nobody has to fight in court. My stomach twisted. What you're owed. Victor, Father didn't owe you a fortune. He gave you opportunities your whole life, and you wasted them. He left this to me. I will honor that. Victor's eyes narrowed. So, you're really going to force me to fight? Fine. I'll drag you through court, through headlines, through every filthy process until you're too tired to stand. And then you'll give in. Daniel stepped in from the hallway, his face stormy. If you keep threatening her, you'll regret it, Uncle. Victor sneered. Stay out of this, boy. You don't know the first thing about family loyalty. Family loyalty? I snapped, my voice rising. You dare say that when you abandoned Father in his last years? You cared about his fortune, not his life. Don't talk to me about loyalty. Victor's face twisted with fury, and for a moment I thought he might strike the table. But then his phone buzzed, breaking the tension. He glanced at the screen, his expression shifting. He muttered something under his breath, then turned on his heel. This isn't over, Evelyn. You'll see. He stormed out again, leaving the door half open. Later that evening, as I sat with Daniel trying to collect myself, the phone rang. It was the bank. The manager, Mr. Lawson, said politely, Mrs. Hartman, we'd like you to come in. There are items in your father's safe deposit box that need your attention. I thanked him, but my voice trembled as I hung up. Daniel saw the worry on my face. What is it, Mom? The bank, I whispered. They want me to come in. There's something in Father's safe deposit box. Daniel nodded firmly. Then we'll go together. And in the back of my mind, I already knew Victor would not let me walk into that bank alone. The call from the bank replayed in my mind all night. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the house silent, except for the occasional creak of old wood. My father's estate was already settled on paper, but something about the safe deposit box gnawed at me. What had he placed there that couldn't simply be written in a will? And why had the bank waited until now to call me in? By morning, I had made my decision. I wasn't going to hide from Victor's anger anymore. I would go to that bank, face whatever truth my father had left behind, and protect it no matter what. At breakfast, Daniel noticed the determined set of my jaw. You're thinking about the bank, aren't you? He asked. I nodded. Yes. I need to go today. Whatever is in that box, it's mine to deal with. Your grandfather trusted me for a reason. I can't let fear or Victor make me hesitate. Daniel leaned forward, his eyes full of concern. You know he'll show up, Mom. He'll find out and he'll be there. You don't have to do this alone. I know, I said softly, reaching for his hand. But I also know I can't run from him. If Father left me this responsibility, I need to see it through. And if Victor comes, then so be it. Maybe it's time he finally faces the truth. By noon, we drove to the downtown bank where my father had kept his most private affairs. The building was old but polished, with marble floors and brass railings that gleamed under the lights. Every step I took echoed, steady but heavy. Daniel walked at my side, his presence giving me courage. As we approached the front desk, Mr. Lawson, the bank manager, rose to greet us. He was a tall man with silver hair and a professional calmness about him. "Mrs. Hartman," he said with a polite nod, "I've been expecting you. If you'll follow me, we'll retrieve the contents of your father's safe deposit box." I was about to respond when a voice I knew all too well rang out from behind us. "Well, isn't this convenient? I figured you wouldn't have the nerve to face this without me." Victor. He strode across the lobby in a tailored suit, his smirk wide, his eyes sharp with greed. "If Father left anything in that box, it belongs to me too. Don't forget, Evelyn, we're family." My stomach clenched, but I lifted my chin. "This is my responsibility, Victor. Father made that clear. You're here because you invited yourself, not because you're entitled." Victor laughed under his breath, shaking his head. "Entitled? You wouldn't even know what to do with $50 million. You'll waste it on charity and flower gardens. Meanwhile, I know how to multiply it, protect it, make it grow. That money should be mine." Daniel stepped forward, glaring at him. "You don't deserve any of it. Granddad made his choice." Victor sneered, spoken like a spoiled boy who expects to inherit it all from his mother someday. "Enough," I cut in firmly, my voice echoing in the lobby. Both of them turned to look at me. "This isn't about money. It never was. Father trusted me, and today we'll find out why." Mr. Lawson cleared his throat, looking uncomfortable with the family tension but maintaining his professionalism. "Mrs. Hartman is the sole legal heir. Only she has access to the safe deposit box. If she chooses to allow others to witness, that is her decision." I held Victor's gaze. For a long moment, I saw the boy he once was, the brother I had grown up with. Then the image was gone, replaced by the greedy, bitter man standing in front of me. I took a deep breath. He can come. If Father left something for him, then he deserves to see it. But if he didn't, then he needs to accept that truth once and for all. Victor's smirk faltered just slightly, but he followed, as Mr. Lawson led us down a long hallway to the vault. The air was cooler here, the sound of our footsteps magnified. My pulse quickened as we stopped in front of a massive steel door. Mr. Lawson inserted a key, then gestured for me to do the same with mine. My hands trembled, but I steadied myself and slid the key into place. The locks turned, and the heavy door creaked open. We entered the small, private room where the safe deposit boxes were kept. Mr. Lawson pulled out a long, narrow metal box marked with my father's number. He placed it on the table, then stepped back. "Whenever you're ready, Mrs. Hartman." The weight of the moment pressed down on me. My father's final secrets lay inside. I looked at Daniel, who nodded encouragingly, and then at Victor, whose eyes glistened with hunger. I placed my hand on the lid, my voice steady now. "Whatever is in here, Father wanted me to see it, and that is exactly what I'll do." As I lifted the lid, the air in the room seemed to hold still. This was the turning point. The moment that would either confirm or shatter everything we thought we knew about my father's legacy, and I was ready to face it. The sound of the metal lid lifting felt deafening in the silence of the vault. My hands trembled slightly as I pushed it back, the cool air of the room pressing in on me. Victor leaned forward like a predator about to pounce, his eyes shining with greed. Daniel stood close to me, steady and calm, ready to catch me if the weight of this moment proved too much. Inside the box, there was no stack of cash, no glittering jewelry, no keys to secret accounts. Instead, there were envelopes, journals bound in worn leather, and a few carefully folded documents. My breath caught. Father's handwriting covered the envelopes, his neat cursive instantly recognizable. Victor frowned, his disappointment flashing across his face. What is this? Where's the money? Where are the assets? He shoved his hand toward the box, but I quickly pulled it back toward me. These are father's, I said firmly. He left them here for me. One envelope was addressed with my name in bold letters. Evelyn. I picked it up carefully, my fingers brushing over the paper as if touching it could bring my father back for a moment. My eyes stung as I opened it and unfolded the letter inside. Dearest Evelyn, it began, if you are reading this, it means I am gone. I know what I left you in my will is not just money, but a burden. You were the one who stood by me when I needed help, when the world grew small and quiet. I never had to ask. You were simply there. That is why I chose you, because love cannot be bought and loyalty cannot be faked. I blinked back tears as I read aloud, my voice shaking but clear. Victor shifted impatiently, his jaw tightening. The letter continued. I also knew Victor would be angry. He has lived his life chasing wealth and admiration, but not responsibility. Evelyn, this fortune is not a prize. It is a test. Use it wisely, not for yourself, but for the good you carry in your heart. That will be my true legacy. I folded the letter slowly, pressing it to my chest for him. The weight of Father's words filled me with both sorrow and strength. Victor's face twisted with rage. This is ridiculous. That letter proves nothing. He was old. He was sick. He didn't know what he was saying. But then I noticed a second envelope, sealed tightly, with Victor's name written across it. My pulse quickened as I picked it up and held it out to him. This one is for you. Victor snatched it from my hand and tore it open, his movements rough, as though he expected deeds to property or access to hidden accounts. Instead, he pulled out a single page, folded neatly. His eyes scanned the words, and I saw the color drain from his face. I spoke softly. Read it, Victor. Father wanted you to hear his voice, too. His lips moved silently as he read, but then he slammed the paper on the table, his hands shaking. No, he muttered. No, this isn't right. Daniel picked it up and read aloud, his voice steady. Victor, I gave you every chance to stand beside me, but when I needed you most, you vanished. I built this fortune with discipline and sacrifice, not for greed, but for family. Evelyn proved she understood that. You did not. My fortune is hers, but what you have lost is something greater. My trust. The silence that followed was crushing. Victor staggered back a step, his face pale as the words settled over him. His arrogance, his defiance, all of it seemed to crumble in that moment. He whispered, almost to himself, he didn't trust me? After everything? And then his legs gave way. He collapsed into the chair behind him, his head in his hands. The sight of him, broken not by money but by the truth, was almost too much to watch. I felt no triumph in that moment, only a deep sadness. This was my brother. We had shared the same childhood, the same home, the same father, but somewhere along the way, he had chosen himself over everyone else. Now, he was left with nothing but regret. Daniel rested his hand on my shoulder, steadying me. Granddad knew who you were, Mom, and he knew who Uncle Victor had become. That's why he chose you. Mr. Lawson, the bank manager, cleared his throat gently. Mrs. Hartman, I believe these documents are yours to keep. If you'd like, we can make copies for the record. But as of now, it is clear your father's wishes are fully documented. I nodded, my voice quiet. Thank you, Mr. Lawson. As I gathered the letters and journals, I felt a strange calm wash over me. Father had spoken clearly, even from beyond the grave. The money, the estate, the fortune. It wasn't about wealth. It was about trust, loyalty, and love. And no court, no greedy brother could take that away from me. Victor sat slumped, unable to look at me. For the first time, I didn't feel small under his shadow. I stood tall, holding my father's words close to my heart. The safe deposit box hadn't just settled an inheritance. It had revealed the truth that money could never hide. Leaving the bank that day felt surreal. The sun was shining outside, but I carried a heaviness in my chest that no light could ease. In one sense, I had clarity. My father's words had confirmed everything I already knew in my heart, that love, loyalty, and presence mean far more than money ever could. But in another sense, I felt grief all over again, not only for losing my father, but for losing the brother I once believed in. Victor didn't speak a word as we left the vault. His steps were unsteady, and his once confident stride was gone. He avoided looking at me, his face pale and blank, as though father's letter had stripped him of every defense he had built around himself. Daniel walked close to me, his hand lightly on my arm, steadying me in ways only a son could. I knew he wanted to celebrate that I had won, but it didn't feel like winning. It felt like surviving. When we reached the parking lot, Victor finally stopped. He turned his back to us, staring at the ground. For a brief moment, I hoped he might say something, an apology, or at least an acknowledgement of the truth. But all he managed was a bitter, broken whisper. "He trusted you more than me." Then he walked away, his shoulders slumped, his figure shrinking as he disappeared down the street. I stood there watching him, my heart aching. I didn't hate him. Despite everything, I couldn't, but I pitied him. He had chased wealth so desperately that he missed the true inheritance father had offered, his trust, his wisdom, and his love. Back at home that evening, I sat at the dining table with Daniel. Spread out before us were father's journals and letters. The handwriting was steady and deliberate, his voice captured forever on the pages. Each entry told stories of his struggles, his triumphs, and the lessons he hoped we would carry on. Daniel leaned over the table, reading aloud passages that made us smile or laugh. "Granddad was a tough man," Daniel said, chuckling. "But he was funny too. Look at this. He wrote about chasing a tenant's goat out of one of his properties." For the first time since the funeral, I felt warmth rise in my chest, a reminder that my father wasn't gone entirely. His wisdom lived here, in these pages, and in the choices I would make moving forward. In the weeks that followed, Victor tried once more to push through legal channels, but father's journals and the signed letters closed every door on his claims. His lawyer eventually advised him to step back, and soon his calls and threats faded into silence. I didn't celebrate his defeat. Instead, I prayed he might someday learn to find peace without needing to take from others. As for me, I chose to honor father's legacy in a way that felt right. The estate gave me more resources than I could ever use in a lifetime, but I knew he hadn't left it for me to hoard. I created the Richard Hartman Foundation, a charity focused on education for children from low-income families and support programs for the elderly. It was father's values, not his wealth, that guided me in shaping the foundation's mission. Each decision I made reminded me of his words. "This fortune is not a prize. It is a test." At night, when the house grew quiet, I would sit with one of father's journals, reading his thoughts in the glow of a lamp. Sometimes tears blurred the ink, but other times I found myself smiling. He had trusted me not just to manage money, but to carry his spirit forward. And slowly, I began to realize that his greatest gift wasn't the estate. It was the responsibility of keeping his legacy alive. Daniel remained my rock through it all. He reminded me daily that I wasn't alone, that what mattered most was not what Victor tried to take, but what we still had, each other. Watching him grow into a man who valued integrity and compassion gave me hope that my father's lessons would live on through him as well. Now, months later, when I walk past the framed photo of father in my hallway, I no longer feel the same weight of grief. Instead, I feel gratitude. Gratitude for the years I had with him, for the wisdom he left behind, and for the strength to face my brother without losing myself. If there's one lesson I've carried from this painful chapter, it's this. Wealth can reveal the truth about people. It can show who is loyal, who is greedy, who stands firm, and who crumbles. But in the end, it's not the money that defines us. It's the choices we make and the love we leave behind. I never wanted a fortune, but I was given something far greater, the chance to prove that loyalty matters more than greed, that trust is worth more than gold, and that family, at its best, is not about blood, but about love. And as I sit here now, looking at the Foundation's first scholarship recipients in a newsletter on my desk, I know my father would be proud. Proud not of the wealth he left, but of how it was used to light someone else's path. If this story moved you, please subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'd love to hear your thoughts and stories.